Many of you think extinction is final, that once a species disappears, the story ends. But on a planet where most oceans are unexplored and vast regions remain unmonitored, gone doesn't always mean dead. So today, we're exploring 7 creatures that were written off, lost to time, to science, or simply in the blind spots of our planet. You'll discover the evidence that suggests they may have never truly vanished. Golden lion tamarin. Picture this, a bright orange primate, impossible to miss. Vanishing anyway, swallowed by green forest that no camera ever fully mapped. That's how a species disappears in plain sight. In the 1960s, the golden lion tamarin was a species on borrowed time. Only 200 remained, trapped in isolated pockets of the Brazilian jungle. And in 1969, scientists gave them 10 years before total extinction. The world wasn't just watching them decline, it had already accepted the ending. Until reports started slipping through the cracks. Deep in unexplored sections of coastal forest, locals described sightings that didn't match the known remaining population. Small groups of the animals appeared in areas that had been written off as uninhabitable, places the maps treated like blanks. Then, in the 1980s, conservation teams discovered isolated pockets of tamarins in forest fragments that supposedly couldn't support them. Alive, reproducing, and persisting in conditions scientists said would fail. What unsettles researchers isn't just that the species survived, it's that entire populations existed completely undetected for years. What else have we declared lost, simply because it lived where we didn't check? Aleutian Canada goose. Imagine a chain of volcanic islands stretching into fog, so thick it erases the horizon. An entire world where a species could survive for decades without being counted. By the 1960s, the Aleutian Canada goose had been reduced to a rumor. Once numbering in the hundreds of thousands across the Aleutian Islands, the introduction of Arctic foxes by fur traders decimated nesting populations. By 1967, fewer than 800 birds remained, scattered across a handful of remote islands. Extinction seemed inevitable. Ornithologists prepared to document the final generation. Then one survey changed the story. But in 1974, a discovery on a foggy island rewrote the timeline. A researcher conducting surveys on Boulder Island found a breeding population that shouldn't have existed, because no one thought there was anywhere left to hide. These geese had survived on a remote island inhospitable to human presence, where no comprehensive survey had ever been completed. And this is where the case turns sharper. The Aleutian chain stretches over 1,200 miles of volcanic islands, many rarely visited and poorly documented. So, if a large migratory bird could persist because its refuge was simply somewhere we hadn't properly checked, what more could the ocean and islands around them be concealing? Lystrosaurus. Now zoom out beyond human history. Imagine an animal that survived the worst extinction the planet ever recorded and then slipped out of our timeline like a missing chapter. 250 million years ago, Lystrosaurus inherited a dying world. When the Permian extinction event erased 90% of all species on Earth, this creature survived. A reptile the size of a pig with a turtle-like beak and sprawling limbs, it dominated the early Triassic period, becoming the most abundant land vertebrate ever recorded. Then, it vanished from the fossil record. Science declared it extinct, lost to ancient history. Yet, in remote regions of Antarctica and South Africa, fossil hunters have found something that doesn't fit. Lystrosaurus remains appear in geological layers that shouldn't contain them, suggesting the species persisted far longer than previously believed. However, in 2009, researchers in Antarctica's Transantarctic Mountains found specimens in rock formations dating to periods when Lystrosaurus was supposed to be long extinct. The timeline didn't match. And here's why that matters for this video. Extinct is often treated like a clean line, but deep time isn't clean. Layers shift, dating has margins, and the fossil record is famously incomplete. What if it simply retreated into the blind spots of geology, rare, buried, and easy to miss? Lystrosaurus was a burrowing animal, built to survive underground when the surface became uninhabitable. If it learned to retreat deeper and adapt to total isolation, how did we find evidence on the surface? Nautiluses. Picture a living fossil, an ancient spiral drifting beyond the edge of light, quietly disappearing not with a dramatic death, but with empty surveys. For 500 million years, the Nautilus has drifted through Earth's oceans. Encased in a spiral shell and propelled by jets of water, it haunts the deep ocean slopes where light barely penetrates. In recent decades, populations have crashed. Overfishing for the shell trade pushed multiple species toward collapse. And by the early 2000s, scientists warned that some species had likely disappeared entirely from vast stretches of ocean. Surveys came back empty. The absence was noted. But in 2015, the ocean gave up a secret. Researchers exploring deep waters off Papua New Guinea discovered a species of nautilus that hadn't been seen in over 3 decades, presumed gone, appearing again. Not a single individual, but a breeding population, living at depths where previous surveys hadn't reached. And that flips the meaning of extinct in the sea. In an ocean that covers most of our planet, is extinction sometimes just a word we use for things that moved deeper than our lights could reach? Cuban Solenodon. Imagine a venomous mammal that looks like it fell out of another era, alive not because it's strong, but because its world is too harsh for us to search properly. The Cuban Solenodon is a creature that defies the rules of modern biology. A venomous mammal resembling an oversized shrew with an elongated, flexible snout, it is one of the only mammals on Earth capable of producing toxic saliva. For decades throughout the 20th century, it was a shadow. No specimens were found, no sightings were recorded. The island's rampant habitat destruction and the introduction of aggressive predators seemed to have erased it from the map. Scientists didn't just worry it was gone, they wrote it off. Then the silence broke. But in 2003, a research team searching the remote, jagged mountain forests of eastern Cuba captured it on camera, a Solenodon, alive and thriving in terrain so rugged that human presence was almost non-existent. And that forces a sharper question. If an ancient, venomous mammal can remain hidden in mountains for so long, what other old secrets are still out there, waiting in places we avoid? Pongo. Think about how visible great apes are supposed to be. Now imagine discovering that an entire evolutionary line was there the whole time, and modern science didn't recognize it until yesterday. The orangutan, known scientifically as Pongo, has spent centuries watching its world shrink. As recently as the 1800s, their populations stretched across Southeast Asia in numbers that are almost impossible to imagine today. Then came the era of expansion. Logging, palm oil plantations, and human encroachment carved their ancient emerald home into jagged, isolated fragments. By the mid-20th century, the verdict was in. Certain populations were declared functionally gone, trapped in pockets of jungle too small to sustain life. But in 2017, the forest revealed something that shook the foundations of primatology. In the remote Batang Toru forest of Sumatra, scientists confirmed the existence of a species that wasn't supposed to be there. The Tapanuli orangutan was identified as a completely distinct evolutionary line, with fewer than 800 individuals remaining. They hadn't recently arrived, they had been there for millennia, living, breeding, surviving, while modern science had no idea they existed as a separate species. How does an entire great ape, one of our closest, smartest relatives, remain scientifically invisible until just a few years ago? Aardvark. Finally, imagine an animal that can vanish without a death scene, no carcasses, no proof. The aardvark is often dismissed as a strange, nocturnal burrower living a solitary life by eating ants and termites. But behind its steady reputation lies an unsettling truth. We have almost no idea how many are actually left. In vast stretches of sub-Saharan Africa, the aardvark has vanished. Habitat loss and climate shifts have created silent zones where the species no longer appears, yet, because formal surveys are nearly non-existent, the disappearance becomes a file, not a story. In the 1990s, a mystery began to unfold in South Africa. Researchers noted that the Aardvark had simply evaporated from regions where it was once a staple of the ecosystem. The absence was noted, filed away, and the areas were written off as abandoned. Then the cameras caught them. In recent years, remote camera traps in these supposedly empty territories began capturing images that changed the assumption. The aardvarks were there, active and healthy in the very landscapes scientists had declared dead. The aardvark's survival is a masterclass in staying hidden. This is an animal that spends its daylight hours buried deep within subterranean systems that can extend for meters underground. The species could be rebounding or collapsing, and we would have no reliable way of knowing. So when an animal's whole life happens under the dirt, how can we ever be sure it's truly gone, or simply staying out of sight? Every creature we've discussed was written off in one way or another, not because proof of death was found, but because the trail went cold. So maybe somewhere in the unexplored depths and forgotten burrows, something might still be breathing, waiting for the moment we stop trusting the official label and start paying attention to the gaps. If you've watched to this point, give this video a like and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.